Your Excellency, President John Dramani Mahama, Your Excellency, the Vice President of the Republic of Ghana, Your Ladyship, the Chief Justice, our Chairman of the Council of State, Dr. Ishmael Yamson, the Chairman of the Organizing Committee, other members of the Organizing Committee, members of the Diplomatic Committee, and fellow countrymen and women, distinguished ladies and gentlemen. It gives me great pleasure to welcome you to this august gathering. Your presence here is a testament to your love for country and the resilience of our collective unity and purpose. This is an ample demonstration of our ability to put aside our differences when the national duty calls and bind us together in search for answers to the problems that confront us as a country. Today's gathering and the subsequent consensus that will be forged from these stimulating discussions will follow and will lend us the opportunity to be able to put together a policy that will guide all of us. This is a proof to the old saying that adwen onyinimpa kro ne tirim, to wit, knowledge does not reside in the head of one person. I wish to acknowledge the Chairman of the Organizing Committee, Elder Statesman Dr. Ishmael Yamson, and the distinguished members of the committee for working tirelessly to put together this important dialogue. It is with great anticipation that we embark on this first national economic dialogue in over a decade, a pivotal moment in our national history. This dialogue is not only a significant and defining moment, but it's also an important reenactment of our history when the nation assembled at a similar forum in Senchi some 10 years ago. Today, we set out to attempt to resolve economic puzzle of much greater magnitude and scale than those that confronted us some 10 years ago. This dialogue is therefore an opportunity to reflect on our economic reality, address the pressing challenges, and chart a course towards a more prosperous future for our citizens. It is my hope and prayer that the lessons that will emerge from these conversations will guide our steps and that we may not repeat the mistakes of recent past. The panel discussions, workshops, and breakout sessions have been carefully designed to confront the pressing economic challenges of our time. The resultant prescriptions and the critical policy initiatives will drive structural reforms and our transformation agenda to reset our economy and secure the prosperity of our citizens. Mr. Chairman, as we embark on this development of our medium-term plans, commencing with the forthcoming budget on March 11th, the insight, expertise, and experiences will be garnered from these deliberations will prove very invaluable assets that will shape our collective path for our future. In this time of crisis, it is very imperative that we acknowledge the significant toll that has been borne by every Ghanaian, particularly the poor, from severe currency depreciation to hyperinflation, from haircut to steep tax increases, from rising inflation, from rising fuel costs to rising electricity prices, and very increasing interest rates. Fellow countrymen and women, the economic crisis isn't over. Indeed, the full length of our current crisis is still unraveling by the day. The situation requires significant sacrifice from all of us to stem the bleeding and place our economy back on the right trajectory. I'm pleased to note that His Excellency the President has taken the lead and has given the strongest signal to our commitment to sacrifice. In furtherance to his commitment, we have streamlined and realigned the size of government, evidenced by the reduction of ministers of state to 60 from the initial 123 and later to 88 ministers. We have followed. We have also followed with significant budget cuts that will be announced soon for the office of the President and further prohibition of the first-class travels by all government officials. These actions represent merely the initial steps in our ongoing journey towards fiscal discipline and good governance. Mr. Chairman, let me seize this opportunity to express my heartfelt gratitude to the organized labor and the Ghana Employers Association for their understanding and collaboration in search of an agreement concerning the minimum wage and base pay. I wish at this point to reaffirm to labor that the NDC government, headed by His Excellency President Mahama, will commit to transparency, accountability, and good governance. Mr. Chairman, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, I would now crave your indulgence to take you to a presentation on the state of the Ghanaian economy. Ladies and gentlemen, I will be taking you to only 4 chapters: the growth trajectory, the long-term trends, and the urgent need for us to reset, the fiscal challenges we face, and the opportunities to reset, and I'll make some proposal for the way forward. Your Excellency, truth be told, the causes of the 2022 macroeconomic crisis can be traced well before COVID-19 and the deterioration of global economic conditions. In fact, when these shocks struck, the Ghanaian economy was already in a very precarious state. Ghana has experienced a strong growth since 2000s, beginning 2000. Strong economic growth over the past decades placed Ghana in the top 10 fastest growing countries in the sub-Saharan Africa, reaching middle income status in the year 2011. Between the year 2008 to 2019, Ghana's economy expanded by about 6.8% per year, above regional and global averages of 4.4% and 2.7% respectively. GDP per capita doubled, averaging 3% growth per year. However, the growth was driven by oil and mining, accompanied by huge debt accumulation. Oil production began in the year 2011 and contributed steadily to economic growth, representing 5% of GDP on average. Moreover, between the year 2013 and 2019, nearly 20% of GDP growth was directly attributed to mining, in fact, gold mining. Simultaneously, the growth acceleration was sustained by increased fiscal imbalances, which fueled debt accumulation. The fiscal deficit averaged about 4% of GDP between the year 2008 and 2019, more than twice as much as in the year 2000, between 2000 and 2007. Public debt went from 20% of GDP after a peak in the year 2006 to 93% at the central government level in the year 2022. Although these factors led to increased vulnerabilities to the commodity prices and shocks, Ghana failed to take action. The growth, as we have seen, has not translated into structural transformation and productivity. There has been very limited progress in structural transformation, with the agriculture sector still representing 1/5 of GDP and also 1/3 of the labor force, about 33%. Manufacturing productivity remains relatively low, and higher productivity sectors in industry, such as commercial mining and construction, employing few people, the informal sector and self-employment have absorbed a large share of the labor force, even among the higher income quintiles. This is contrary to what we've seen in some advanced countries and medium-sized countries. Ghana's export basket has remained concentrated in simple products with low value addition. The economy is dominated by primary products with limited value addition, which restrict the potential for economic diversification and growth. Ghana's top 3 exports, gold, crude oil, and cocoa, accounted for 85.1% of the country's total export in the year 2024. High productivity manufacturing is relatively small and has not exploited the opportunities that we have with ECOWAS, AGWA, EPA, and AFTA. This reliance on primary commodities highlights the need for strategic effort to diversify the economy and reduce dependency on a narrow range of products, taking advantage of global value chain. Your Excellency, unfortunately, income inequalities has progressively worsened. Inequalities across regions persist due to lack of economic convergence, disparities in service delivery, and environmental degradation. Poverty rate in Upper East, Upper West, and Northern region remains above 50%. Rapid urbanization has led to rising disparities within cities. Although urban poverty rates have dropped over the last decade, the number of urban poor has not increased at all. Poverty is more prevalent in lower elevated slums, where communities experience higher fertility, lower school attendance, very low access to sanitary services, and vulnerable to natural disaster. In the year 2024, Ghana's inequality was worse than Côte d'Ivoire, Nigeria, Benin, Togo, and other neighboring countries, unfortunately. I'll now take you to long-term trends and the urgent need for us to reset. Your Excellency, the current growth model will not be sufficient to meet Ghana's needs and aspirations if nothing is done. And it will mean that we have to take urgent steps to correct this trend. Ghana needs to take advantage of its demographic dividend. With 500,000 young people joining the labor force each year, 500,000. Within the current growth model, growth will reduce to only 3.8%, which represents 2.4% GDP per capita in less than 15 years from now. There's an urgent need to implement ambitious reforms to reset the economy in the next 4 years. Otherwise, we'll go down in terms of growth. Transforming Ghana's economic growth from one based on factor accumulation and natural resource depletion to one driven by productivity and human capital is very critical. Economic growth can be sustained over 6.5% of GDP, fully offsetting headwinds from demographic trends and the decline in natural resource depletion if we are to adjust from the current baseline situation. Your Excellency, the graph on the left-hand side shows the baseline situation from now to the year 2050, using the baseline and where the growth will be. We've adjusted for moderate reforms, and we have also adjusted for ambitious reforms. The moderate reforms will largely mean that we will have to quickly bring on stream the Pecan field, and that will adjust from where we are and improve the growth trend. Whereas ambitious reforms will mean we'll have to do a lot more than adjusting from the Pecan oil fields. Without comprehensive reforms, unfortunately, Ghana will only achieve upper middle income status after the year 2050. And we cannot wait till the year 2050 before we become an upper middle income country. There's an urgent need for comprehensive policies and institutional reforms that enhance productivity, improve the quality of infrastructure, services, and elevate human capital and workforce skills. These reforms have the potential of transforming Ghana within a generation, tripling its per capita income by the year 2050. There is the need to reorient fiscal policy to support the growth and structural transformation. Your Excellency, again, the graph at the left-hand side shows the baseline and the moderate reforms and ambitious reforms. Unfortunately, looking at where we are going, if nothing is done, Ghana will only become an upper middle income country in the year 2050. With moderate reforms, we'll be able to become an upper middle income country in the year 2042. But if we are to do well and introduce very ambitious reforms, Ghana will indeed become an upper middle income country before the year 2038. And we have no choice. We will have to introduce measures to reset our economy. There's an urgent need for economic transformation to reset Ghana. And we have 7 chapters to reset our economy. Chapter 1 is resetting the economy and creating prosperity for all. Chapter 2 is jobs for all. Chapter 3 is Ghana's framework for industrial revitalization, support and transformation. We call it the Ghana First. The 4th one will be powering growth through infrastructure development. 5, investing in people for inclusive growth. 6, restoring good governance and combating corruption. And 7, deepening international relations and foreign policy so that Ghana can benefit from economic diplomacy. Your Excellency, we face fiscal challenges, and indeed there are opportunities to support this reset. First, I will take you through public expenditure, other words called public spending. The fiscal space, as we speak, is constrained by high interest rates, high energy subsidies, and mounting rigidities. Government expenditure grew faster than GDP over the past 8 years. Non-discretionary spending severely limited the fiscal space due to high wage bill, high energy subsidy, ballooning interest payment, spending indiscipline, and weak expenditure controls, including commitment. These categories of non-discretionary expenditures, namely public sector wages, interest payment, earmark funds, account for about 70% of Ghana's total expenditure. All these expenses crowd out expenditure for capital purposes, capital expenditure. Social spending has been very low and is often misused. The National Health Insurance Scheme faces financing shortfalls and also misuse of resources. So the problem with National Health Insurance is not only with the financing shortfalls, but also with misuse of resources. Financing shortfalls for National Health Insurance. The National Health Insurance no longer receives its full National Health Insurance levy as approved by law due to the Capping Act. Additionally, resources increasingly diverted towards non-core activities, and this hinders efficiency. Today, less than 60% of the National Health Insurance budget goes to non-claim payment. And you could see that in the year 2008, from the graph, we used to use 86% of the National Health Insurance budget for the purposes of claim payment. This has reduced to about 58%. In fact, in the year 2022, it went down to about 50%. Public spending also on education is inefficient and skewed towards secondary and tertiary levels. Only about 1/4 of government education spending goes to pre-primary and primary levels. Most funds go to staff compensation, leaving little for classroom materials and infrastructure improvement. And you could see how our education budget is skewed, also from the graph from the right-hand side. Your Excellency, infrastructure spending, again, is highly inefficient and mostly uncompleted. Even a small improvement in spending efficiency could lead to significant progress in infrastructure quality. For example, an increase in efficiency to match best performing emerging markets would deliver about 20% improvement in the quality of Ghana's road. Spreading resources on too many projects without completion has become the problem of Ghana. For example, Agenda 111, where $400 million have been spent in the last 4 years without a single hospital in operation, with about $1.5 billion needed for completion. The amount spent of $400 million could have completed a minimum of 22 district hospitals instead of spreading yourself too thin. Maintenance is indeed cheaper than new infrastructure, but funds to road maintenance is also inadequate and often misused. Another example is only 41% of our primary roads were in good shape in the year 2021. Funds for road maintenance cover only 45% of maintenance needs. And this 45% of funds that has been allocated for road maintenance are often used for development instead of maintenance. And so you could see that most of our roads are deteriorating. Your Excellency, the energy sector in Ghana has become a ticking time bomb, costing about 2% of GDP every year. The objectives of the energy sector recovery program are completely off track. Fixing the sectors require radical measures. High generational costs due to lack of competition and limited renewable capacity in the energy mix is a problem. High distribution and collection losses at ECG. High distribution and collection losses at ECG is also a problem. Currently, only 62% of total energy purchased by ECG is collected. And even out of this 62%, 65% of that amount is used to pay for supplies through the cash water fall mechanism. Unfortunately, 35% of ECG's revenue is used to take care of ECG themselves over things that they don't actually require. Non-cost reflective tariffs, about 50% of cost of service provision is a matter for us to discuss. However, I still maintain that tariffs should not be used to reward ECG's inefficiencies and other inefficiencies in the system. Unpaid legacy arrears at end of year 2022 was $1.3 billion. Annual cumulative sector shortfall in 2024 stood at $2.2 billion, despite government transfer of $2.1 billion in the year 2023 and 2024. Projected cumulative financial shortfalls for energy sector is over $9 billion by the year 2026. And this is without any intervention, and if we assume business as usual. This simply means we have to take action, and the action must be now. Your Excellency, the cocoa sector also poses a significant fiscal risk. Declining cocoa production with record high prices. Cocoa production has dropped nearly 50% over the past 3 years. The 2023-2024 crop season, Cocoa Board was not able to supply 330,000 tons of cocoa contracts. Existing forward sales contracts locked in lower prices than current market rates. Revenue losses of $840 million for both Cocoa Board and the Ghanaian farmer as a result of what is happening at Ghana Cocoa Board. Additionally, about $500 million losses for rollover contract was achieved in the last year. The market prices and differentials is what aids smuggling. Large gap between market price and farmers' payment encourage smuggling and threatened long-term sustainability. This implies that for every ton of cocoa delivered this year, in fulfillment of the rollover contract, Ghana Cocoa Board and the Ghanaian farmer would lose $4,000 per ton in revenue. No wonder we are unable to offer the cocoa farmer the right price, because every ton delivered because of the rollover contract, $4,000 has been lost. And so the government is unable to offer enough for the cocoa farmer. And this is what is actually leading to the smuggling of cocoa beans to our neighboring countries, Togo and Ivory Coast. Cocoa Board's extra budgetary spending is also a major fiscal risk. Total debt at the Ghana Cocoa Board is $32.5 billion, of which $9.7 billion is due to be paid at the end of September 2025, this year. Outstanding cocoa road contract reached $21 billion, in fact, $1.3 billion in the year 2024, of which only $4.4 billion accounted for in Cocoa Board financial statement. Supplier arrest is difficult to quantify because of lack of transparency and has become a major concern to industries. Excellency, the elephant in the room. SOEs and joint ventures company showing mounting operational and financial risk. Almost all state-owned enterprises are in the red. Almost all of them are in the red. From the Electricity Company of Ghana to the Agricultural Development Bank. Almost all of them are in the red. In fact, beginning from the year 2021, 2022, and 2023, you will see that Cocoa Board posed some profit of $2.2 billion in the year 2023. But Your Excellency, this is artificial profit. This profit is because they failed to service their debt because of the debt suspension. And so all the cocoa bills that were due at the time, they failed to pay because of debt suspension. Subsequently, this debt still exists, and so we will need to take action to restructure most of the state-owned enterprises. Fiscal challenges and opportunity to support, and the need for us to talk about revenue now. We can't develop if we fail to generate resources internally. Your Excellency, Ghana has not performed well in revenue mobilization compared to its peers. Ghana's domestic revenue mobilization has stagnated in the last decade and remained below our peers. Ghana collected 13.5% of GDP in revenue, tax revenue. Collection from other major taxes remain low, especially value-added tax, as compared to our peers. Numerous exemptions and complexity of tax system have a detrimental impact on revenue. Tax administration challenges also contribute to compliance gap. And I have two different graphs, the one on total tax revenue and the one we need to take action, the value-added tax. You could see the long line, the yellow line, dotted line, and the dotted red, representing where Ghana is and where our peers are. When you look at the other one, the value-added tax, where Ghana is and where our peers are, clearly shows that Ghana is lagging behind in the collection of tax revenue and, most significantly, value-added tax. This will mean we need urgent reforms to rationalize our value-added tax regime. Currently, it has been distorted, and as a result, there is very little compliance. The VAT gap is huge. Last year, GRA programmed to increase the VAT effort by 32%. Unfortunately, they ended up doing 17%, clearly below inflation, and that should tell you that there is a significant problem. The fiscal cost of tax exemption calls for rationalization, whilst mitigating the impact on the poor. The Tax Exemption Act in the year 2022 set out clear criteria and guidance, but other legislations introduce further tax incentives that deviate from the national tax benchmark. Tax exemptions from VAT, PIT, and import duties are estimated to generate a loss of about 3.9% of GDP. This amount does not include corporate income tax exemptions. While these exemptions often offer some relief, they are costly in fact, very costly, and they create leakages, complexity, and distortions in the tax system. The largest source in VAT foregone revenue is the VAT exemption on supply of dwellings and land, representing 33% of our overall cost. But to be fair, VAT on dwellings, VAT on real estate was introduced in the year 2023 by the previous administration. Unfortunately, getting to the year 2024 during the elections, they decided to abandon it because of elections. Your Excellency, the truth is that the tax exists, but it was abandoned ahead of the election. And that alone will mean we will have to close the gap immediately. Ghana was not sufficiently capitalized. Your Excellency, this point is extremely important. Ghana has not sufficiently capitalized on its extractive sector to generate revenue to support development and diversification. We struggle to leverage on our natural wealth, capturing its rent and channeling it towards productivity, infrastructure, and human capital. Natural resource rent simply means the difference between revenue of a commodity and the cost of producing that very commodity. Currently, the rent is 14% of Ghana's GDP. Unfortunately, fiscal revenue from extractive industries are around 1.5% of GDP because we fail to fully capture the economic rent from our natural resources. Simple put, whilst extractive industry is enjoying a rent of 14%, Ghana has not been able to take advantage of the rent. All what I want to say is that, can we take advantage and take 1% of the 14% rent as a country to support our development in infrastructure and also human capital? Fiscal challenges and opportunities, Your Excellency, with their other considerations outside taxes, expenditures, and financing. And the other considerations are institutional reforms and corresponding policy directions that will need to guide us. The fiscal rule. The Fiscal Responsibility Act 2018 failed to contain debt accumulation, the very reason why we set up the Fiscal Responsibility Act. Lack of enforcement and credibility issues, limited counter-cyclical flexibility in the law were the problems. SOE reforms are urgently required. Poorly performed SOEs in energy and agriculture sectors burden public finances. Growing fiscal risk from contingent liability and quasi-fiscal operations that we need to address. And to be straight, the non-performing SOEs in energy, I'm referring to ECG. A non-performing SOE in agriculture, I'm referring to Ghana Cocoa Board. Your Excellency, the PFM and procurement systems urgently need to be upgraded in order for us to achieve a long-term fiscal discipline, because currently they are becoming quite outmoded, and there's the need for us to restore it. Broader macroeconomic framework. Containing high inflation and stabilizing the cedi is key for fiscal action and growth. Inflation remains stubborn, around 23% since May 2024. Climate issues such as drought in key agriculture areas and delayed rainfall have harmed production, while supply chain challenges have further impacted on food costs. High inflation reduces cost of living and worsens food insecurity, particularly for the most vulnerable. Tight monetary policy stance is essential to control inflationary limits, reduce risk premium, and improve credit to private sector, and encourage exchange rate stability is essential to contain the debt service and pass-through of import prices. Your Excellency, the recent reduction in T-bills alone is saving Ghana about $1 billion US dollars, 1 billion Ghana cedis. And that 1 billion Ghana cedis can be channeled to critical areas of the economy. And clearly, we need to take steps to reduce the borrowing and also reduce the cost of borrowing so that we'll be able to channel the dividend to support our national development. I now move to the way forward and conclude. Fiscal policy in the past 8 years has been very ineffective. As a result, the macroeconomic situation remains very fragile. It is imperative that we build a momentum for reforms. The quality of adjustment will be key to support growth and protect the poor and most vulnerable. Your Excellency, we have 7 focus areas: enhancing domestic revenue mobilization, balancing equity, simplicity, and efficiency, pursuing a quantitative fiscal consolidation, ring-fencing growth, enhancing spending, and social spending is the second focus item. The third is ensuring compliance with public financial management and public procurement laws, implementing robust commitment control to maximize value for money and ensure fiscal discipline. The fourth is to enhance the efficiency of public spending in social programs and public infrastructure. The fifth is phasing out costly, regressive, and ineffective subsidies in the energy sector, whilst increasing targeted social programs. The sixth is reforming state-owned enterprises that create contingent liability and quasi-fiscal spending. Example is Ghana Cocoa Board and the almighty Electricity Company of Ghana. Your Excellency, strengthening Ghana's fiscal framework by redesigning the fiscal rule, strengthening automatic stabilizers, while containing budget rigidities and revenue earmarking is the seventh one. And to conclude, Mr. President, fellow citizens, we can reset our economy. We can do this. We just have to be disciplined and understand that the short-term benefits we gain today has a long-term consequences on our future. Let's do this for Mother Ghana. Thank you, Excellency.